Well, hello out there in the RPG community. I am DBJ, so welcome to my daily show, Monday through Friday, RPG with DBJ at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you for joining me. Today is Friday, Future Fridays. It used to be called Eclipse Phase Fridays, little hyper-specific, although futurism is my thing. Transhumanism and all that kind of stuff, but wanted to make this a little bit more generalized. I do have myself a co-host who will introduce himself shortly, but today, Future Fridays, we're going to talk about first contact and the ways we can use that in our role-playing games. You don't need to necessarily know a specific rule set, but you can use that possibly as RPG fuel for your sci-fi settings, and maybe even some of your medieval and modern settings as well. But allow me to allow my co-host to introduce himself.
Hi guys, I'm RP Gamer, and as you probably know if you watch this, I'm on quite a lot, putting up with DBJ, or is DBJ putting up with me, and I'm on a bit of hiatus on my channel at the minute, but I do videos like this, and I'm reworking my schedule, so that should be back soon. But anyway, I'll save the rest of the promotion for the end.
No problem. Hey, so especially for those who aren't used to using sci-fi elements in their games, we're going to just define first contact and what that means. And of course, we're definitely, absolutely, positively, definitely going to bring up Star Trek, okay, as the pinnacle of first contact. So first contact isn't Happy Future Friday. Thanks, Vince. First contact is the idea that player characters tend to be the individuals exploring the outer realms of wherever they come from. And this is going to be their first introduction, usually on a social level, with another race, culture, planet, asteroid, dimension, whatever have you. And this will be their introduction to this particular new world. Now, oftentimes, the idea is that the protagonists, the players, most likely are going to have some sort of advantage. They're going to have greater technology, greater knowledge of these other people, or at least in their eyes, they feel that they have they're on a superior standing, maybe like socio-economically, greater access to equipment, money, resources, travel, and that the people they're contacting may not even know of their existence or have the ability to travel. So if they are sailors, they might be, sailing in the Caribbean or something, and there might be islanders that have no idea that there are these other people out there. Or it might be the opposite with Europeans landing in Japan, where the people with the ships arrive having no knowledge of a larger nation that they come in contact with. But more or less, the idea is that a small group of people knows of a alien race or culture, and then they meet for the first time. So now, RP Gamer, you said you had your first comment was about something about offering technology or something like that. So I want you to go into that, and then we're just going to expand on that idea hugely.
Yeah, well, I'm going to skip Star Trek for now because they came up with that rule and just blatantly ignored it for most of the run of the show. So we're going to ignore that. But my favorite video game series, sci-fi video game series, is a series of games called Star Ocean. and the majority of them are based around the concept of humans and other related races, part of this like galactic federation, finding themselves involuntary on these planets that are like pre-industrial, pre-medieval style planets, and it's all about like we have to hide our technology from them. But they've like crash landed in this big massive spaceship. So what they're gonna do when that comes? The first one I played, Star Ocean 2, it begins where he's involuntarily transported to this planet on his own, and he's got his laser with him. He's got his laser gun with him, and like he obviously comes across a threat, a monster coming at him. He instinctively uses his laser gun to kill this creature that's attacking him. And unfortunately, there's a group of people from the planet that witnessed this, and he looks at. He obviously doesn't want to give them the laser gun. Doesn't want to tell them what it is. He can, if he wanted to, replicate this laser gun infinitely, the technology he's got on him, but and the planet, because they don't understand what a laser gun is, they instinctively see him as they see him as a god, basically, as sent to them by the gods. He has this magic power to shoot lasers, so he actually goes with that because he doesn't want to share this concept with them. He knows what sharing this could lead to, so he goes with the concept of, yes, I'm supernatural, I'm a god, I have these abilities, and that's sorry, I'll let you jump in.
You mentioned the game is called Star Ocean. Vince in the chat asked, okay, and Live and Let Dice mentions a War of the Worlds or Dances with Wolves. The players decide which it is, and what completely opposites in many ways. War of the Worlds with human beings running for their lives from the aliens, and Dances with Wolves, more of a culture clash and being inducted into it. Yeah, even what's Avatar? Avatar is a similar thing, a culture being investigated, kind of, and not having a full knowledge of the people that came to the planet. I forget the name of the planet. It's like it doesn't matter. Anyway, the human beings having to mine the unobtainium, and of course the village sits on top of the unobtainium, so you got to knock down the giant world tree and blah blah blah. But anyway, what's another? Fern Gully was another just like that. But the concept that the alien species or these people who haven't been exposed to something, and they just assume that the human beings are using their technology are like godlike beings is a very common trope. Vince even says Stargate does this all the time, and I think more than having something with a lot of combat, that of course always deals with the social implications, because if the people think you're godlike, now you have to kind of portray yourself that way, because the minute you make the minute you make false claims, or someone sees through your lies, or you stumble and fall, or the minute you're not immortalized, but the minute you are they consider you to be a mortal being, they're going to be quite pissed off, right? It's usually a one-shot kind of idea. I've very rarely seen that stretched out as a campaign. I mean, you can, because there's a lot of fuel there, but the minute they realize, hey, you're not a god, they pretty much want to kill you. Not a very good tactic on a long-term basis, I think. Excuse me.
Sorry, the kids just seem to like wandering in every now and then.
No problem. Oh, so now, as far as introducing technology to an alien culture, and I don't mean the portrayal of being gods and such. I think oftentimes we as game masters would worry because we're putting the players automatically in a superior position. And if you just got a group of murder hobos, they're just going to go around and start blasting everybody with who's got hide shields and wooden spears, and the humans are equipped with like laser pistols or blaster rifles and power armor. They're just going to dominate the populace anyway. And many of them, if they are not like immersed in the exploration part of it, the social interaction part of it, they're just going to lay waste and either not be particularly interested, or they're going to want a threat that's larger, like whether it's, I don't know, alien spiders or some kind of bestial creature or something, maybe that's attacking the villagers, and have some sort of greater conflict to deal with, and the medieval culture just happens to be background flavor.
Yeah, I think a way to deal with kind of the murder hobo thing would be yes, they're technologically and socially advanced than where they've ended up, but they don't have that equipment. They've been sent there without it. So that would be kind of, they would have to deal with living as that technology because that's all they can get their hands on.
Right. Now, Vince says, yeah, a constant problem in Astrocetus. Basically, I have to assume that every planet or colony has some way to defend themselves from spaceships. And in his setting, for Cypher System, the player characters are part of the leaders of a crew on a spaceship, and they travel from planet to planet, colony to colony, and have some interactions. And if sometimes players like to default to base actions and reactions, and a lot of times it's the nuke them from space and nuke them till they glow and let God sort them out kind of thing that unfortunately some players will default to. So just making something interesting. Now, Live and Let Dice brings up a point. First contact could also double into the attitudes of a second first contact with another faction that has relations with the first. So for you, it might be first contact, and for this other culture, it might be their second contact or parallel contact. So let's say a planet has access to a particular type of resource, and the players in their faction want those resources, and the first people to make nice with them or to go through a particular ritual or accept a certain type of maybe there's a marriage or they have to bring in certain of their tribal members, and I'm assuming that they're tribal, into this space culture or something, or even offer to these people some kind of great technology first, might get access to these resources. Yeah. Jared says, "Hey DJ, did you need a wall to bounce off the stream? I've got a new webcam that doesn't look like Vaseline." Yeah, because I sometimes I'm not sure about the what's the way to say it. My camera sometimes likes to make its own decision about zooming in or out, and so it'll actually it'll pick a point to focus on, and sometimes it's not my face. Sometimes it's like 5 inches in front of me, or like 10 inches behind me or something. And I sit in the same spot, so I'm not sure exactly how to adjust it unless I turn it off, and then I move around a lot, so then I start moving in and out of the the focus. Sometimes I've got to put my finger up to it and then like let it like focus backwards or something. So let's all right. I can't tell. Yeah, sorry. I'll probably have to get a new one. I don't know, I think got it on Amazon or something for like $30 or whatever.
It's all right in a minute.
Yeah. All right. So the now in Avatar, of course, they were trying to mine for the unobtainium, which is a completely ridiculous, but probably something we would create title for a particular mineral or what have you. But the other thing that comes to mind for me is Dune. Now, Dune more or less makes a parody between the culture and the people in the solar system, this particular galactic system. So they're not so far away from technology. It's more of the people that lived on the desert planet choose to live that way. So in this case, it's more of a choice of their lifestyle rather than people who have no contact whatsoever. And in Dune, everyone wanted to get spice. That was the deal. Spoiler alert: in Dune, spice came from the giant sandworms that lived in and under the sand on Dune, and spice blow would happen when the sandworms would I'm blow it out of their blowholes or whatever, or crap it out, as the case may be. But essentially, everyone needed the melange, the spice to psionic powers, pilot starships through the wormholes or whatever. It's been forever since I've read it.
Pretty much that universe is like answer for everything, really. Everything futuristic was powered by spice.
Right. And you know, you could call it MacGuffin if you want to. This is basically what it is, right? We need to do X. It's powered by spice. You know, we've got, I don't know, force fields or something. It's spice powered. So, so in that world, it's the idea of trying to make treaties with people and deals with people to get the spice off the planet. And the Fremen lived on the planet, and of course they don't want you going after it. Like, hey, we live here, you can't take it. And so resource acquisition is a very common theme among First Contact, because otherwise why would you even want to contact them in the first place? So one idea is to have some sort of resource, whether it's powering, you've got to refuel your starship, or it's some sort of resource medically, because maybe the people are immune to a disease that's ravaging other worlds, and you need to acquire it, or this resource is very important to power cities or something like that, or even it could be some kind of rare element that gives people psionic powers or something, and everyone wants to come after it. But it's kind of like butt weasel coffee, where maybe you can't acquire the spice unless it's and I'm calling it spice, but the melange, something that is undefined, and maybe it's unable to be replicated anywhere else except in the natural environment of this place or by these people. You couldn't just pick up the mineral and take it somewhere and put it in a replicator and duplicate it. Somehow it's whatever the circumstances are. This planet has it. The people that live on the planet know how to get it, and they've got their arms folded and they're looking at you like, you're an invader. As Jared says, in Dune, the tech was nerfed to the ground, but there's a specific reason for it, if I recall, because spice was so potent, it was the uranium of the world. Yes, I don't remember that part of it, but yes, absolutely. And Dune is an interesting example of this problem because multiple factions wanted the same thing, and you use this to your advantage. And sometimes to your disadvantage, right? Because like the different factions each controlled something. Like the see here we go with the Dune because I'm sure I'm going to absolutely ruin this, but there were the guild masters or whoever, and they controlled the spaceways, and then there was like another faction that controlled the politics, like the interaction with the politics, and then there was another faction that was like the military faction. And so whatever the case may be, you can always have factions in your game world where each faction is hyper specific on what they can do, and you need multiple factions to work together to get it. So if there's only one faction that's like the trade delegation and they trade things, but then there's another faction that actually builds and monitors starships, the two, you might need to get those two to work together for you to get what you want, and then each of them wants something out of it.
Yeah, because I mean, but in the universe of Dune, it wasn't like a technological advantage that helped people. It was like whoever controlled this planet controlled everything. It was in charge of everything, really.
Yeah, and Jared, really like the David Lynch movie of For What It's Worth. It very divisive, but essentially it was trying to boil down a very detailed world. And I suppose it was Game of Thrones before Game of Thrones became the Game of Thrones of Game of Thrones. It was.
Yeah, I've read a few of the Dune books, and did my head in when I started.
Yeah, plenty of people who are Dune fans were pissed off because Game of Thrones did for it what Dune should have become. Although I will highly recommend, there was a British version of limited series, maybe 6 hours. Series.
I've got both of them. They did the original book and Children of Dune as a mini series, and they are much better than the movie because they've given that extra time to expand into what it should be, which is the difference between Game of Thrones and the movie of Dune. Because if Dune was given a TV series, they could have done what Game of Thrones have done. But if Game of Thrones was a movie, it probably went the way Dune did and missed everything out. And
yeah, you really get a chance to sit with, in many ways, sit down with each faction, just like Game of Thrones. You get to sit down and look at things from their point of view. And I think the television limited series, mind you, it didn't have a lot of money, but I think the storyline, the way they were able to develop the characters, far exceeds the need to have a lot of huge special effects. Because even Dune itself really isn't heavy special effects, except for riding on sandworms and a couple of shots of starships. That's really it. So I suppose if you want to do a great way to introduce a first contact story, might not specifically be about the culture you're first contacting, but the motivations as to why there's a first contact. For example, like Jarek points out, he thinks there was a certain bloodlines that could only use these spice for like certain powers. The Bene Gesserit, which I don't know why I remember that, or were the women that were like the psionic witches, basically, of this world. But you could have something where there's a I'll call it like some kind of like omni material that has a unique purpose, but no one knows what it is. Kind of like how we're using nuclear technology. Like we know what it is, but we don't know the upper limits of it, good or bad. And it could be everyone wants it first because they don't want to be second to get it. And a number of factions are fighting over these people who have it and can use it, and maybe they don't question how it's used, right? Maybe it gives them certain special abilities that kind of equalize or even surpass technology. So maybe we go down on a planet with our laser blasters, and with their minds, they just stop the laser blasts. And we don't know how they're doing it, but we want to be first to get it, or at least prevent maybe other factions from getting it because they might be far more violent or oppressive. Maybe they enslave their people or something. And if you give them powerful psionic abilities, they would just dominate the universe. So that could also be a plot as well. You could stretch that out, multiple sessions or a campaign where you're trying to you're tasked with obtaining a material and at the same time preventing that material from falling in the hands of other people.
Because that's the thing, and I'm slightly going to go to Star Trek here, but I can understand looking at it why they ignore the Prime Directive so much, because it is such a limiting factor within storytelling. Like, you're trying to tell a story about a starship going out and discovering new worlds and alien races, yet you've given them this law that they can't actually interact with the new planet and races. So I can understand why they ignore it so much, and why like so many sci-fi series ignore like that kind of rule when they bring it in.
Yeah. I'm gonna plug another guy's channel who has no relationship to me, although he lives like an hour and a half north of me, in Ashtabula. But there's a guy, Isaac Arthur, and his entire channel is dedicated to futurism, space exploration, and such. And he brings up the issue of the Fermi paradox and the somewhat absurdity of the Prime Directive. And his point is, it's extremely hard to have a quarantine on visiting other worlds, because at some point you're going to want to contact them, and they're going to want to contact you. And you could always keep preaching the no, we don't want to have first contact, but it's possible that the contact itself is a natural part of the development of the other culture, right? That would be like human beings never discovering other aliens because they don't want to contact us first. And yes, they could say, well, we're waiting for them to reach space and all this kind of business. But you could rationalize not having first contact forever because the other culture may always be behind you technologically. So then in that case, then all it takes is some other faction to say, well, we'll do it first, or some kind of accident happens, which usually happens with Star Trek. Someone accidentally trips down a hill, or beams the wrong place, or says the wrong thing, or wants to save someone's life, and then all of a sudden we've got first contact.
Or Kirk finds out these aliens have breasts.
Oh yeah, wow wow! First contact today. Oh yeah.
I'm sure there's many human hybrids around the universe thanks to Kirk now.
Captain Kirk, the most prolific bard in the world. Yeah. Hey guys, I'm still giving you my my bardic inspiration. Why are you so upset? Yeah. So Vincent says it was introduced as first contact's future development is also a blank check way for you to course correct, like that episode of The Simpsons with Lisa's Men's Society. And then Vincent says, I was introduced as a possible conflict for the characters, so they had a reason not to get involved. It is basically a rule that was only introduced so it could be broken all the time. And it's talk about the Prime Directive, right? And it's one of the things like Star Trek never really particularly did was they had the Prime Directive. Okay, then they have a reason to break it, usually an accident of some sort, or someone's life is about to be altered, like the sun is about to explode, or um, some child broke their leg and they have to save the child's life or something. But they very rarely went back to that culture to see like their later development. Um, Unlike what's the show? The Orville, which I think is a better show than people expected it to be, because it's not really a comedy show. But in the Orville, they went to a planet that was out of time sync with them. So the crew would go to the planet, and then when they left the planet, somehow it moved. It was moving at like 600 years for like every hour the ship was in orbit. So they went down to the planet, and then something happened. And when they left and came back, they erected statues in honor. They made a complete religion around one of the crew members, and they wanted to go back to the planet to correct them, to tell them that, maybe committing genocide in our name really isn't the thing you should be doing, with these statues of one of the crew members. And there was like kind of this learning curve for the culture as they tried to tell them that no, we aren't gods, this isn't right, and then having to fight the people who were completely engrossed because they completely believed that they were gods. And when they tried to tell them they weren't gods, they were like, "You're lying to us. You are a godling." It's like, wait a minute, what? No, I'm telling you the truth, right? And then this culture kept advancing and advancing until they became a spacefaring race, and they grew beyond their petty squabbles and such. But that was the first time I actually saw like the age progression, if you will, of First Contact.
Yeah, because the thing I didn't, especially the original series of Star Trek, the aliens that they encounter never seem surprised by them. Like Kirk comes out with this technology and that, and they don't seem to question it like you imagine they would, or they don't seem phased that much by it.
Now, if you didn't want the wide-eyed surprise all the time, it could be that their culture already believes in these people. Like, I mean, like take us for example. If we saw aliens, we would have some kind of predisposition because we're a sci-fi culture. So if they shot an energy beam, the first thing we'd be thinking is like, is that a laser, or are they shooting gamma rays, or you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying we wouldn't be surprised, but after the initial shock, we'd be going through all of our sci-fi novels trying to figure out what it is that they're doing. If we didn't have any scientific basis to figure it out, we'd want to know, can they read our minds, or are they shape changers, or are they going to take us and use us as batteries or food or something? You know what I mean? Like we would already have assumptions in our heads. So maybe, First Contact doesn't necessarily mean like they're like so behind the 8 ball that they're like, oh, they're gods. It could be like, oh, they're aliens. What do they want from us? And it could be that there's factions on the planet that automatically assuming like, oh, these humans are like invaders from the body snatchers, and we need to kill them because they're, that's their point. They're going to take us over and replace all of us. And there could be another faction that's like, no, they're here to save us. They're like they're going to gift us with their technology at some point. And that's something that you brought up before, where you make First Contact, and let's say you give them a way to they're suffering from a great disease or famine, and you give them technology to cure it, and then they proceed to use this technology to cure their famine, but now they're like, well, why aren't you giving us more of your technology, like anti-gravity or like power armor or laser beams or things like that? Like, they might be a little bit offended that you're treating them like pets rather than equal members, even though they might be lower on the technological totem pole.
And that's where the conflict would come in, because do you help with this initial thing? Because they would come back and say, well, it's like everything we would as humans. If someone came along and invented something, well, we do it all the time. Someone invents something, we accept it, and then we go, well, what else is there? Can you invent something to do this, or have you got something to do this?
Yeah, there is I believe the book is called A Mote in God's Eye, and Larry Niven. I don't remember the specific details, but more or less there was an alien race, like almost like gremlins, marsupials, or what have you, and they were assumed to be a little bit above animal intelligence, more like we would consider monkeys or gorillas, apes, bonobos, basically. And what society didn't realize is that they were hyper intelligent. They just hadn't had access to technology. So, and they were also like not a hive mind, but more like ants, where an individual ant isn't very smart, but collectively they're brilliant. And when they were let loose on starships, they quickly learned how to fix and steal and modify technology to help themselves out. But mind you, they are like a smaller, not hive mind, but collective race. So they used our technology, or spacefaring technology, in a different way, and didn't understand that they were stealing it from other people. So they were like dismantling starships and dismantling laser cannons and dismantling, like, just because they were smart. They were like, oh, I have a tree limb, I'm going to build myself a nest. And then they got on the starship and they were like, oh, that's a lug wrench, I'm going to figure out how to use my my laser drill to take apart the outer shell of this thing. And they just quickly like became these like space gremlins everywhere. And they weren't evil, but they were like extremely annoying, simply because they weren't evil. Like, they weren't trying to harm you. They were just like, you're not using it, why can't we?
They were just learning.
Right. And they were hyper intelligent. They had the ability to learn as a group 10 times faster than human beings, because they had no factions, they had no disagreements. It was, oh, we're going to build ourselves an armored nest on our world. Let's take apart the starship. And they're just like, okay. And they swing around and hide in different places and steal something off your belt and take things apart and put them back together again. And yeah, it was pretty silly. Not silly, but like, it was the idea, like, they weren't evil, but of course you had the idea of let's eradicate them all. But that would very much be genocide, because they weren't trying to take over the universe. They just wanted things for themselves, and they just didn't understand the concept of yours and mine, because everything was collective. Vincent says, reminds me a bit of Nox from Stargate, which seemed like a primitive culture, but later they found out that they could bring people back from the dead and were incredibly advanced. And what DBJ is talking about sounds like the replicators from Stargate, a race of small robots which can reproduce metals they find, basically drones that could build other drones. And yeah, you know, it's very much a possibility that with a first contact, that we make the assumptions of something that just isn't very true. They could be very, very powerful mentally, or maybe they are descendants from another spacefaring race, and they just never were able to reconstruct their own technology until like maybe we come along. Like maybe they need a power source, or yeah, power source is a good place to start. Maybe there's some, like, I don't know, duranium crystals or something that they need to power their old technology. Otherwise, they just remain primitive.
I think Star Trek did something like that. I think they met a group of humans that had been sent into space at the early stages of our space travel. So they were still they were having the technology of like the early 21st century still, and they came across them, and they obviously, because they were fellow humans, decided to share their technology and all that with them. They didn't see a problem with sharing technology with fellow humans, showing them, but obviously their minds were still blown because they weren't used to that level.
Yeah. And Vince says, "Oh, look, an interesting small robot. Let's take it on our ship." And he's like, 10 hours later, half the ship is gone and it was all swarmed by robots. Yeah, yeah, absolutely, right. And then and you don't want to kill the robots because they're so cute. No, anyway, but there's, you know, um, I've heard that space exploration by us could lead to this very situation. So I'll give you an example. Let's say the first starship takes a colony of people, I don't know, 100, 1,000, big giant seed ship, and we send them out, and it takes, I'm just making this time frame up, 10,000 years to get to Alpha Centauri, right? And it's going to take us so long that our people have to be frozen, or it might be a generation ship where the first generation will not live to find another planet, that there will be generations of people living on the ship until they arrive. But the problem is that as that ship is traveling, we here are moving at a faster time rate than the other ship if they're moving closer to light speed. So we could create technology that surpasses the speed of the people that we just sent out for this 10,000 year journey. So we could actually catch up to or surpass them based on our technological development now. And so the people we send out to the first planets outside of our galaxy might have a lower technological level than the people that they meet on the second or third or fourth trip coming from the same location.
It would make sense, unless while they're on the ship, they're also they're also experimenting and developing technologies while on the ship. Which would be that they're still their technology might be the level of equal to Earth's when they arrive at the destination, but it'll be from a different place because they wouldn't have needed some of the things we need on Earth.
Yeah, and it's possible they could diverge genetically. Because Vince brings up a really good point about in reality, first contact would be super deadly. What if they had diseases we have no antibodies against, or vice versa? You go to another alien planet and then you end up infecting them with what you have. And the same reason why time travel would be a stupid idea in real life, because, for example, if we go back to I'm going to say the 1920s or 30s, there was like smallpox and what was another disease that a gentleman, wow, my brain just froze. There was a disease that was ravaging so many people. A doctor, it was the first and last time a scientist was that beneficial on a large scale. He came up with a way to cure it and gave away the cure for free. I cannot remember what it was. But anyway, anything from, like, if we went back to the Dark Ages, when they had the Black Plague, you know, we would absolutely, either we would be decimated or we could bring that disease with us. And so now I want to bring up eclipse phase as a setting. Eclipse phase makes it a point that, well, first of all, eclipse phase has stargates. They're not called stargates; they're called Pandora gates. But the concept is still the same. That in our galaxy, on different planets and asteroids, were hidden these stargates, and you could travel through the stargates to go to like wormholes. So you could walk through them, you power them up, turn them on, walk through them, and you go to these other realms. But we don't understand them completely. We just know that they were created by an alien, a very highly technological alien culture, and we're using the stargates ourselves. And so that in itself was a type of first contact, but the game makes a point to not do the Star Trek trope of humans with ears and, you know, nose ridges or something, right? That each contact should be absolutely alien. Whether it's a living fungus or psionic plant life, or an alien species that communicates through pheromones, or poisonous worlds where the alien race is nothing but technological soup or what have you, to make them really, really bizarre and deadly. And we as alien to it as many species on Earth are as alien to us, like octopi or whales or jellyfish or something. RP? Oh, you had to leave. Oh, I didn't even see that. Okay, so so one method of first contact might just be the growing pains of trying to make first contact, and understanding who they are. So what's another one? District 9. District 9 is another kind of first contact story, even though the aliens got here, came to us, as opposed to us going to them, and trying to integrate their culture with our culture. Vincent says would actually be an interesting challenge to have first contact with those races. You know, just trying to. I always feel like first contact movies and stories brushes over the very first thing that we won't be able to do with another alien race, which is communicate. Most Star Trek is, we have a universal communicator. We touch it, it communicates in English back to them. Takes about 10 minutes and we're done, right? Or whatever language it is, universal or whatever they create, right, in the future. But if the other race it communicates through like bioluminescence, we would have to figure that out first, then figure out the light waves they're using without offending them. They may communicate through, like we communicate with body language, they might communicate on multiple light frequencies. So it won't just be one light frequency. It might be 30 different light frequencies to express anger or hate or rage or fear or desires. And then, Vincent says the movie Arrival has a cool way to show how this may actually look. Arrival's a perfect example, current example of a first contact story, and how our language and the alien language, Arrival's almost like The Sixth Sense. Like, you really don't want to give away the movie, but it has such a unique language in it that you want everybody to see it. So I'm not going to spoiler Arrival. But needless to say, it is a absolutely excellent geeky movie, right? It's not laser blasts or anything like that. But when you meet the aliens and how they communicate and how we communicate with them and our assumptions, because we're human beings, we're kind of arrogant, right? And when we meet them, the aliens are like, "Hey, listen, we're trying to communicate with you." And then how it starts off, the young lady who is a linguist, and how she deciphers what they're trying to tell us and starts off very small. It's very good. Vincent says, yeah, a unique movie about first contact, almost like the movie, the older movie, 90s movie Contact, had that effect where this is another reverse first contact. So instead of us leaving our planet and traveling somewhere else, an alien race comes to contact us. Because I mentioned District 9, but in Contact, the movie Contact with Jodie Foster, we were sent a message to build a machine that allows us to go to see them. And we construct the machine here, and all of the problems that came about with terrorist organization that felt like I think their point was aliens disproved God and God was real, so we shouldn't go to other alien worlds. It was something bizarre like that. But there was another thing where they tried to come up with the money to build it, and all the countries that were in businesses that were involved in it, and all that, the machinations about getting the money to build it and people to design it, and the people who had a love-hate relationship with wanting to contact another alien race in the first place, and the dangers of doing it. Because some people were like, yeah, just because we can doesn't mean we should yet. And so you have that problem. So that was more like Earth having conflict, because now we have the ability to contact the outside world, and how that movie goes about doing it.
Yeah. With our arrogance that you just mentioned, that the race were arrogant, I can see, unfortunately, I can see us trying to teach our language to them rather than the other way around. As we've done many times on our own planet when we've come across other cultures, we've tried to teach our ways onto them.
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, it usually starts out that way, right? You meet someone and you can't communicate with them, and so like here in the States, we have I think it's a rule that we have to talk slower and louder. I'm not sure. It's like, I don't think they teach that somewhere. I find it incredibly annoying.
We English have that rule that if they don't understand us, we just shout at them.
It just works better.
Everyone speaks English. You just have to talk that a little bit louder to some people.
It'll eventually get through. Yeah. Oh my God. But could you imagine? Okay, imagine an alien race that acts like us. They may not look like us, but they have all of our foibles, and how disconcerting that would be. Because I think it would be hilarious to have another alien race act just like us, as if we contacted them, and we're put off by it because they're screaming at us, and they just keep getting louder and louder, and then they're screaming at each other. And then when we try to talk to another member of the race, they start arguing with each other, because now we've got to learn this other alien race, but they've got 35 different languages. And every time we mistake that one alien faction for the other alien faction, they just get offended by it. And we're just like, wait, what? You mean you're not an alien race like in Star Trek? And they're all like pissed off about it, because they're like, no, we're from the so-and-so faction. And we're like, but you all look alike. And then they just get even more pissed off about it. We don't look alike.
I can imagine that happening. Or imagine two two entirely separate alien races who do look alike come, and we keep getting them mixed up, that would be.
Yeah. Yeah. Every time they meet us, we think we're talking to the same alien diplomat, but it's just a whole crew of other diplomats coming to see us, and we just don't understand the differences.
No. By the end of it, they'll all that if like there is this like galactic council somewhere where everyone meets up and that, we'd order them all to have sort of like name tags or badges and that, just so we could tell who's who.
That's hilarious. Yeah, Vincent says, there are actually a lot of people who learn the other language first. A lot of Bible translators work that way. And he says, as someone who did not grow up speaking English, I can confirm this actually works, screaming to make yourself understood. I think it works for some people. And I know he's being a little bit sarcastic, but even...
I think it's kind of our view that English is like the superior language, and because we English did conquer the world at one point, so English should be the superior language.
Yeah, and then found out conquering the world is hideously expensive and not all it's cracked up to be,
and give it all back.
Yeah, and then of course the smart thing to do is for the United States to try to do the exact same thing.
Yeah,
and find out, why isn't it working for us?
I'm still of the assumption that during the War of Independence, England just got together and said, "Yeah, this is too expensive. We'll just let them win. We'll just let them go off and have their own country."
Vincent says, yeah, they did shit like this in China. An engineer came to build a factory, and they constantly switched out the workers. He taught how everything works, and he never noticed. Later, they built another factory a couple miles away and fired him. I hate that. That's very brilliantly evil and ignorant, and I love it. That's just hilarious, dude. Like in hindsight, that's awesome.
I can imagine the aliens doing that, doing something like that to us, knowingly switching themselves out for each other, and we're just getting frustrated that these aliens aren't learning what we're teaching them. It's just
well, hell, I think sometimes we still do that to this day. Like for example, here in the States, we have a very, very we have a cruise industry, and to go down into the Caribbean. And I mean, it is very much, not saying that there's no cruise industry around the world, but here in the States, our cruise industry is vibrant. I mean, there's hundreds of ships probably that go down into Caribbean and go down to the islands, and there's like thousands, tens of thousands maybe of islands that you can go to. Not all of them populated, mind you, but it's like vacation area. And from my point of view, I notice a lot of people are very, like, when you go there, the tourist industry likes to play up the I'm just a simple islander kind of individual, come here and have fun. And I think some people fall into they're just a poor, islander nation and they don't know what they're doing, but I'm here to have fun and stuff. And I'm wondering, like, how easy would it be for an alien culture to look at us as visitors, and then behind the scenes, they think we're stupid. Let's just play up the stupidity until we get what we want out of them. You know what I mean? Where, like you said, they could just swap out other aliens because we can't tell the difference, or they're constantly like, can you show me how to design your starship engines? We don't get it. But all they're doing is just delaying it, because underground, they have these factories that they're building tens of thousands of starships or something with better weapons. And the whole time, in relationship to the visitors, they're just acting really like, duh, we don't know. Could you teach us some more?
Well, a recent example of this comes from the World Cup over in Russia. The manager of the Japanese team, he made them train in nameless shirts, and his reasoning was, well, everyone thinks we look alike. So we'll just train in nameless shirts and no one will be able to tell which plays which. That was the actual manager of the Japanese team saying that. I'll just go sort my dog out just in a minute.
No problem. So now imagine, because Vince brings up, he's like Stargate again. Yeah, I bring up the same things too, man. Things you love. But bringing up the idea of nanites given to people at birth, and Tesla says they're pecklets. It was a South Korean, not the Japanese team, but still a cool story. Yep. Oh my God. But Vince says it was a South Korean team, not the Japanese team, but still a cool story about, making them wear jerseys to tell them apart, and then they just start switching each other out and whatnot.
Apologies to anyone.
Yeah, well, listen. The whole point of the anecdote is ignorance. It absolutely fits in there, right? Like, just to be like, we're not trying to offend anyone. We're just saying, we're purposely, specifically saying it is offensive, but a cool thing if you're on the other end and just abuse the whole thing. Like you're the alien race wearing t-shirts and you're like, let's just switch the t-shirts around because I'm bored with these humans. You take over, and you're like, I don't want to do it. Fine, let Joe do it. All right. And a little insectoid puts the t-shirt on, and they think they're talking to the same diplomat.
We don't think about that. Like, we always imagine first contact, and we're like, well, did the aliens actually want to make first contact with us? Have they witnessed what we're like and have just thought, no, we'll skip that planet. We'll just
right. I mean, imagine, okay, like we often talk first contact where this other race or culture has never had contact with anyone before, where it could be they've been contacted multiple times. They just don't want to be continually contacted. So it's possible that they could still, like, for example, another alien race gave them nanotechnology or something, or this race of people already had technology. Maybe they went through a process where they like nuked their whole planet and they've regrown, and they know, they are of the mindset that technology is not good for them, because if they use it, they'll abuse it. And so maybe they've specifically catered themselves to not using technology in a certain way, and we contact them again, and it could be elders there or their government or what have you, or a hidden faction that's like, look, we're going to go down the same path, kick these humans off the planet. We don't need them. We know where this is going to lead, right? Because they could be looking at us like we're living primitive on purpose because we know where you're going to go. You're going to destroy yourselves. Maybe you should cut back, pull back on your technology, because we know better. We've been through what you've been through.
So the race we're trying to contact may appear primitive to us, but like knowledge-wise, they're much more advanced than we are. What's that?
Yeah. Oh my God, Vince. Oh shit. He says, well, first he says, I still don't think this would actually work. At most, this should make it slightly harder to identify them. You could always hire someone who knows these guys or not. Yeah, of course. I mean, we have like biologists that are able to tell the difference between like tigers and the different breeds, or even penguins or something out in the wild. So yeah, but okay, you're going to have someone who's smart enough to do that, and then you're going to have someone in power who's just an idiot who ruins the whole thing for, you know what I mean? Like, you're going to have your lower level person who's like very brilliant, who's going to say, hey, well, I know the difference between the aliens, and starts tapping their leaders on the shoulders. Because we all know most, like, not military, but people in power the ratio of common sense decreases based on the power level that people become, and sometimes it's not going to matter to them. Very much the idea of people having a lot of staff around them, people who are so rich that have like maids and cooks and valets and drivers and assistants and things. Like, there's some people who who literally don't recognize the people that work for them on a daily basis simply because they put them at a lower station than them, because of the socioeconomic factor. So if we think we are superior to another alien race, you're going to have a population of people in our staff that's going to look at them like they are just an unnamed mass. You know what I mean? If they're just hive ants, it's not really important to get to know any particular one, which might be annoying for us because we're like, we need to get that person out of power because they're just stupid, like, and that might be the drama itself, because the aliens are looking at us like rolling their eyes like, oh, this guy again. Do we really need to talk to them? Yeah, Vincent says they react to us like we react to Jehovah's Witness ringing the bell. Like, okay, that's enough. It would be funny to be the alien race that's just, they're not evil, they're just annoying. They're constantly like preaching to us or telling us what we're doing wrong, or constantly like, I don't know, changing the color of our clothes to purple because they just love purple. You know what I mean? Like
constantly at the planetary front door, so to speak.
Yeah, they're completely opinionated about the most minor of things. They're just like, well, on our planet, our apples are green on the inside, and they have like a little spongy material inside, and then and we're just like rolling our eyes like, yes, but we're not on your planet. We eat apples here.
So basically, they're the America of the universe.
Right. Everything we have is better, or maybe worse. Like, oh, well, you dropped bombs on Hiroshima, but we dropped like 18 bombs on all these other people. And we're just like, okay, guys, you don't have to one-up us all the time with everything.
We can do that amongst ourselves. We don't need an alien race coming in doing it.
Well, Vince makes a point. Like, here are a couple things you have to adjust so we can meet. And it could just, like, the list just keeps getting longer and longer before we actually make like really good contact with them. And it could be the temperature. It could be like, how many people are there? Maybe there's like a certain scent in the room. It could be they're offended by a certain font printed on a invitation card or something. It could just be, well, I know we're meeting at an elevation that's 1,036 feet above sea level in your world, but we prefer a 982 meter level above sea level, because that's just actually appropriate to our constitution, because we're not really feeling this air pressure. And at the beginning, we're like, okay, sure, we'll do it. And then after a while, it just becomes very annoying. Like, I know this is a 36 scoop of vanilla ice cream you gave us, but there's something missing in it. And we're just rolling our eyes like, okay, you want vanilla ice cream. What is it? What's the specific recipe you want? Because we'll give it to you. We can't put our finger on it. Can you just go ahead and like make another batch and just change it a little bit? I can't tell. I mean, it's kind of sweet and sour. Melty. I don't know. There's something wrong with it. We'll exchange things, but you got to get the vanilla ice cream right. It's just off. I just feel like, no, go away.
We never depict like first contact like that, though, do we? We always depict like first contact where everyone's like wanting to meet, and everyone's accepting of each other as they meet, and it's like a fair trade of information and things like that. But actually, no, because the aliens would probably be the ones in the power, really, during first contact, because they know the galaxy. We're like, we'd be the little, we'd be like that kid just coming into the group.
Yeah, and Vince brings up something that I thought of that, I mean, you could expand this out. He said they had this in Star Trek a couple of times where they had to build like water tanks in a specific room with a specific pH value and lighting and soundproof or whatever, and they're immediately offended when something is not perfect. And like, for example, sure, you could have, this can get a little bit silly, but there might be some very logical ways that people greet each other or associate with each other that's alien, that seems offensive or uncomfortable to us, but might be necessary to meet them. For example, in the book series with the Man Kazin Wars, there were these tiger-like aliens that humanity and the tigers were fighting against each other. They were like humanoid tigers, whatever. Anyway, they were bestial, but they had their society grew with this bestial nature in them. And one of the things that offended them was us smiling. So when we laughed and smiled, we were baring our teeth. They thought of it as an aggressive move and would attack us. And for some animals, that is an aggressive move when you bare your teeth. Now, dogs have learned to understand our body language, but other wild animals do not understand our body language. You know what I mean? So it could be that it might be a very common thing for, say, a furry animal, a furry alien race, that we sit together and we pick ticks out of each other's fur, or scratch each other on the head or show your belly to show submission. And I'm just using that based on aliens that are like animals that we have here. But it very well could be that maybe this alien race lives in a world where the light is so bright, like we have to wear like very thick dark goggles to even see on their starships because their light is so bright. And they use some sort of like I don't know, shadows or something to communicate with each other or whatever. And so we have to like make like little shadow puppets with our hands to communicate with them, because that's how they communicate with each other. It looks silly to us, but to them, that's how they communicate. They hold up their hands and they make these little shadow figures or something, and we're just sitting there making little birds or dogs or something with our fingertips, clump, very clumsily. But that might be how we talk to them, alien races that don't wear clothing.
You're getting back to Captain Kirk, aren't you?
Oh yeah, first contact. I'm feeling this.
Someone would be watching Star Trek: The Original Series and saying, "Yeah, I'm completely up for First Contact. Let's go."
Kirk spending hours and hours. Can I touch those mammary glands again, please? I haven't quite gotten the feeling yet.
He'll definitely be for that culture who communicates by touching breasts.
Oh,
he'd definitely be there, wouldn't
he? Yep. Vincent says Ferengi, rubbing on their earlobes.
But could you imagine if an alien race came along and it was pretty much like we touch each other's genitals to communicate, and we're just like, no, we're not doing that. No, we'll have to find another way to communicate between us because we're not doing that. In our culture, that's not really a done thing.
Yeah. Vincent brings up the Ferengi as well. Like he says, females are always naked on Ferenginia. And always a neat race to show how shitty our own race is. He says they changed this in DS9. Yeah, they actually changed the Ferengi in DS9 too, because I think in the beginning they were like more shorter and bestial, a little bit kind of mean. They were basically another Klingon clone type race, and then they just made them a little bit more, not evil, but conniving, which is just, it's their right. They're change things up to make something better. But like you're saying, RP, like we normally think of first contact, like we want to meet them and they want to meet us, without some of the ignorance that's part of it. Like, hey, we want to meet them, and then they have these really bad habits that are like like off-putting, like you said, like we touch each other's genitals. It's like maybe don't want to do that. Now, what was there was a show called Alienation where aliens came to Earth. It had been years. This alien race was enslaved. They come to Earth, and then we try to integrate the alien race with us. And like they were bald, and their language looked like it looked like the heart monitor thing where it beeps up and down. That was how their language was. So you had this like straight line, but you had these peaks and valleys, these sharp peaks and valleys in it. And one of their favorite foods was spoiled milk. So they would drink this chunky green spoiled milk that everybody thought was just absolutely foul, but they loved spoiled milk, and it was a thing. And lastly, District 9, the aliens there loved cat food.
Well, as long as they like the things that we won't touch, like the spoiled milk and that,
Yeah.
that gives us somewhere to put the spoiled milk.
Yeah,
Instead of throwing it away.
Yeah, see you, Vince. Yeah, Ferenginar or Ferenginar. Anyway, the planet Ferengi. Where the Ferengi came from, but yeah, I mean, first contact stories are pretty wild. Pretty, you know, it could be a situation where maybe in first contact they want us to deal with something that is unseemly for them to deal with. Like, okay, so you can go with a basic thing, like maybe this alien race is being devastated by like a big giant dragon like monsters, right? Like the people live in dome cities or like underground or something, and the surface world is dominated by these Godzilla like creatures that they want destroyed. And so we come to meet them, and they're just like panicked about it, like we can't have a culture because these massive monsters or something. But it could be something else, like maybe their world has been devastated and it's all like post-apocalyptic, and they just want us to fix everything for them. You know, cure our diseases, bring back our crops, build our buildings. And in the beginning, we think of it as a good thing. And then after a while, it's like, wait a minute, we're doing all the work. And they're like, no, we don't understand how to build with tools. You help us build it. Like, okay, fine. We'll build another school. And then after like, 50 cities later, we're like, wait a minute. Wait 1 minute. And they're just like, no. We don't understand. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense because you're constantly calling us. You have no problem. But then when we get here, it's like you're acting like idiots. Like they have us on speed dial. Every time something breaks, they're like.
I imagine lesser aliens would kind of like use us to, but I can imagine that going the other way around as well. We'd constantly be calling on the more advanced alien races saying, we're having a bit of trouble with this. Can you give us some technology to deal with it? Or I can see us doing that quite often.
I ran a game. It was actually a game of Fate, and the game started out as a basis that all the player characters were like Green Lanterns. They were intergalactic. They were a independent intergalactic space force, and the concept was that each player character was like the pinnacle of their race, or not a pinnacle, like they were a member chosen from their race to carry these companion stones. And the companion stones gave them incredible ability. So they could fly through space independently. They had like personal force fields, and they would, getting attacked and falling into the planet through re-entry or something was like a common thing. Like they were intergalactically powerful. And in one game, they actually moved they moved a moon out of the way from being impacted from a meteor swarm or something like that. But the whole point was that the game was to give the players the power to basically affect whole societies and what they could do with it. And there was a planet that granted these people immortality, and and one of the players ended up basically putting a blockade around the planet so that they could harvest it. And it became this I never got a chance to continue it, but it became a big deal because when the alien race was inducted into this galactic senate or something, everybody and their mom wanted a piece of this immortality plant. And it became a big deal as to should they share it, who wanted to steal it, backbiting, the characters being pulled in different directions by their own planetary governments to work against each other, even though they were united as a galactic enforcers or something. So yeah, it was a big thing. Like, yeah, we want you to protect the worlds. Could you steal some plants for us? That kind of thing. So yeah, you could have a situation where maybe the players are far more advanced technologically, but they're constantly being pulled and pushed and prodded to help and change and do things that's always making them make hard choices. Like do you give an alien race medicine, but they're beginning to become overpopulated, right? Do we make the choice that they suffer disease or ravages from weather or war? Like, do we stop other alien races from having war amongst themselves? We don't think about that with ants, but maybe we might do that with monkeys. Like, we don't want them fighting each other, but that might be a natural part of their culture, that this other primitive alien race goes to war with spears and rocks and catapults or something. And we're floating above in our starship, and it's like, well, do we wait to see which one lives, or do we go down there and stop it ourselves?
And that's the quandary of, do we push our values on these alien races?
Right. And if we don't, like, it's kind of a conundrum, right? So if we don't push our values on them, they could either eliminate themselves or maybe even bring those bad traits into a larger galactic setting. Whereas if we do stop it, we could be changing them in ways in which they weren't supposed to be changed. So, for example, we give them medicine, they start to overpopulate, and then the overpopulation becomes a problem unto itself. Maybe almost enforcing the fact that they need to reduce their population, right? Like we might have them overpopulate to the point where they can't help but try to tear each other apart. Whereas before, maybe there was limited conflict. Now it's like constant war. And it could be biological, meaning like they don't understand why they're fighting against each other. Whereas it could be social. So they fight against each other because they know their population can't grow beyond a certain point. And maybe this could literally be like their version of like euthanasia, where they're like, okay, we can only have 2 billion people on our planet. If we go above that, our resources are gone. It's the Thanos conundrum, right? They've got a 2 billion limit on their planet. Above that, they'll start to suffer. No one wants to be the one that gets eliminated, so they go to war. And the war itself drops the population down below 2 billion, which keeps the cycle equalized. I don't know. I'm just going off on a tangent on that one.
It's kind of like some people's views on diseases on our planet. Like, diseases are here as kind of Mother Nature's way of controlling the populations of the world, and we're coming along and curing all diseases. So some people are saying that's what's causing the problems on the planet, that we're curing all the things that would have killed us off.
Yeah, Tesla Ranger brings up another movie, because we always you have to use that as a context, but says on the or the other way around, you can do whatever you want on your own planet, but if you take warfare off planet, we'll destroy your planet. The day the Earth stood still, and that was an old black and white movie, and then I think Keanu Reeves did the modern version, which was it was I don't know, it was kind of a snooze fest, but the point of it was that this alien race comes here to tell us that we are doing things wrong, and sure, you can continue down the path, but if you want to deal with us, you got to correct your mistakes. Which brings up the point, if let's say that is the rule, like on their own world they can do whatever they want, but if they come into this galactic federation, they got to chill out. But what if we go to their planet? Maybe we are expected to live like they do. So on their world, maybe there's like, okay, everyone walks around with a sidearm and a giant blade, and if you offend the wrong person, you can get in one-on-one combat with someone. And the Galactic Federation is like, yeah, you go to their planet, you got to live like they do. You get killed down there, that's the rule, which actually makes a lot of sense to me, even though it could be kind of brutal. Like you said, with disease, if you catch a disease on their world, maybe the Galactic Federation is like, well, you can't bring that disease to us. You've got to deal with it on their planet. And if you're cured, fine. If not, you're dead, because you can't. I mean, that's a very important thing. Bringing contaminating other alien worlds, either bringing it with us or taking it to them, might be a huge problem in and of itself.
Of course. And let's change topic a bit. We haven't spoke about accidental first contact, which could happen during our or an alien race's like first ventures into out of their system. Like if I take it back to video games, there's more recent one, Mass Effect. Our humans' first ventures into the intergalactic world, we accidentally came into the home system of an alien race, and they declared war on us. So that was our first contact, was a war, pretty much.
So it could just be a simple matter of maybe we think a planet or a planetary system is empty, or they're hidden, or we may think of it like, let's assume that, I'm just making this as an example, like Jupiter, we go to a gas giant like Jupiter to refuel our ships, and it could be that this planetary system, the alien race, the planet or asteroid belt or gas giant is empty simply because this other alien race also uses it as a way station. So we could accidentally meet them, but it's not necessarily on their world. It could just be like scouts, almost. Like we cross paths with each other by accident, and then it's kind of like it's like a standoff of sorts. Like, do you invite yourself and follow them back home? Do they follow you? Do you do it with stealth, like espionage? Like, hey, we see this alien ship refueling, let's follow them back to where they're going, without knowing? Or do you make it very public, like waving your arms and legs and flashing your lights and going, hey guys, hey, we're here too, we'd like to meet you? And then the alien race runs off, afraid or intimidated or what have you, we don't know. And like we follow them back to their home world, and then hilarity ensues as they maybe bring out warships, or they could be, and mind you, we tend to think of other alien races as being homogenized, but they could be criminals that we meet and we befriend and come to find out that they're space pirates, and their own alien culture is like, no, they're criminals to us, and you've just befriended criminals, so we think of you as criminals, right? Whereas the pirates might be thinking, hey, we've got great allies to protect us because our homeworld is hunting us down, and now we have the opportunity to make our own colonies, maybe, or maybe they're a faction that was kicked off planet, and now we've just given them, just by virtue of meeting them, now we've given them a political foot upwards to become independent, maybe, or they could be sent on the alien race could be sent on a mission to save the homeworld, but the people sent on the mission to save the homeworld are like, you know what? Let's not go back. Like, there's no point in going back. We can't save them. All we can do is save ourselves and grow. And so we end up helping this one colony grow, but then we find out about the original homeworld, and the colony may not want us to meet or help the homeworld because by virtue of what they've done, they're actually now criminals, even though they didn't intend to be. Anyway, that just was a storyline that just came off the top of my head. I don't know where I was going with it.
Well, you bring up a point, because we say we send out a colony ship to go try and discover life, like the Enterprise's mission. We send them out to discover new planets and life, but they don't necessarily have to report back that they've discovered new life. They could discover this new life, discover their way of life is much better than what they know, and maybe just settle or create their own colony somewhere in space and not tell us about it. So they've had first contact, but we haven't.
That's true. I mean, a whole campaign could be the player characters are literally attempting to make contact with our own colony ships sent out to that have made other colonies, and we've lost contact with them, and or they've, for whatever reason, they're not contacting our solar system anymore. And so maybe our job is to go out and find out what happened to them. And again, hilarity ensues where everyone has a different problem or motivation or goal. Like, for example, one colony maybe have met aliens and they've not ascended, like they've achieved a level of transcendental ability that makes them above us now, and maybe we're not worthy of it. And then maybe another colony left and they've become so mutated and diseased they don't want us finding them. And then maybe a third colony we find, and they've uncovered like maybe ancient artifacts of power and war, and if they sent them back to to our home galaxy, it could spell disaster if anyone found out about it. But the alien technology is maybe indestructible, like they can't destroy it, or it could be any number of things, and that could be interesting to have first contact with ourselves. It could be a first contact story using ourselves as the contact point and using the context of what we used to be, what they used to be when they left, what we are now, and then what they are in the future.
It could be like thousands of years later. We made this attempt to form colonies and talk and meet aliens. That they vanished, so we considered that we because we couldn't get back out there, we deemed that a failure, and they'd obviously just lost in space, basically. And so, but 1,000, 2,000 years later, we make another attempt to go out, and we discover this colony set up that has flourished on this planet. And maybe they have evolved differently to us, so maybe they look physically different to us now, So we assume it's an alien race that we've came in contact with, but it's just us from before.
All right, so before we end this, let's go down this path. This is going to be an idea someone can steal, which the idea that someone can steal, I've just stolen from the AbTab group in their podcast. But anyway,
everything's stolen if you go back far enough.
It is stolen, yeah. Okay, so imagine we find out that a star or multiple stars have exploded and a wave of deadly radiation is heading our way to Earth. And we've our own solar system, like we've populated it. So we have space travel. We've got, Mars is like our second home. We've got bases around Neptune and Saturn and Jupiter, and we're like mining, our asteroid belt and all those kind of things. So we're a spacefaring race, but we're within our own galaxy. I mean, our own solar system, our own system. And we find out that a deadly wave of radiation is going to sweep past us. So we send out seed ships to as many places as we can, along with absolute supplies, micro factories. Like we send out robot ships, like we send out probes. All of this is like a one shot, basically. Like some of it has even been untested. We're just building robots and sending them out. We're building seed ships and sending them out. People are volunteering to go on generation ships, knowing that they won't live to see the planets that they come in contact with. Even some of the star systems, it's just a roll of the dice. So we send out these ships before the deadly radiation hits us. But the player characters are descendants of the people that were left in our own solar system. So the deadly radiation comes through. There's no radio contact at all. Like the radiation just did not allow any kind of contact whatsoever. Maybe we were plunged into kind of a dark time. Maybe it wiped our technology, took out communications, those kind of things. So it was a dark time. We recover. Now we need, like you said, hundreds, thousands of years later, we need to make contact with them. We want to make contact with them. Maybe our population has been diminished, and we are like a new coming out of the ashes, kind of. Maybe we had wars where everyone's panicked, kind of feeding on ourselves a little bit because everyone left in our own solar system. We know it's like the zombie apocalypse, right? When everyone knows they're going to like be killed, everyone just starts eating at each other. And, but we're descendants of that. So we have this new hope, and we want to go out to where these other seed ships have gone. We generally know where they went, but we don't know what happened. And that could be the catalyst to find these air quotes alien races, but we're all genetically related some kind of way. And we may not know. So maybe our seed ship lands on an alien race and they were killed by another alien race. Or maybe we were mutated, or maybe we chose to mutate ourselves to live on these other alien worlds. Like maybe this other alien world had a methane atmosphere, and we adjusted our bodies to breathe in this deadly methane and live in like acid pools or something. So when we meet them, we think they're aliens, but then we find out that they're like 10 generations removed from the first people that landed there or something. And then that could be the genesis of reconnecting with people. Like, I don't want to say you would lie to your players, but you just explain to them, there was a dark time and radiation came through our galaxy. I mean, our solar system. Your job is to go out and find these alien races, and then come to find out that they're actually humanity spread, and they are reconnecting everyone.
You would definitely have to describe them differently. You would have to not necessarily hide but kind of gloss over the more human aspects of these alien races. Focus on what I know it's probably a bit wrong to say, but focus on the differences that they have. Even though in our society nowadays we try not to focus on differences, you'd have to really focus on just to stop your players from figuring out that these are just humans.
And you could absolutely do that with, like, of course, like skin tones and their breathing, and of course with genetic manipulation you can really go far with it. Like they've got 4 arms, or I don't know, eyes that blink sideways or something, or what have you. But you could really, there might be an assumption that humans were killed by these aliens, because we may see evidence that human beings were there, and not first. So the players may not assume that they may assume that they're violent because humans were killed, rather than being evolved into a new race. Because maybe there's like destroyed ships, or these aliens carry, I don't know, he's carrying a teddy bear or something, and a child's toys, and they're like, well, where are the children at? And these could just be artifacts left over that even the population themselves doesn't realize what they are. They just know that they're just little trinkets left over from when the seed ship landed, and maybe harmful predators or the atmosphere or the weather or what have you force them to change themselves. And you could have a lot of conflict with it. Maybe there are some traditional humans fighting against or in conflict with these aliens, but they're the same people. So the one half the settlers chose not to change themselves, and the other half the settlers chose to adapt themselves. And maybe they started this with their children, and that's where the original conflict comes from. Because they forcibly genetically altered their children, and that might have been a huge point of contention, right? Like, we're not going to change our children, like that's just not right. And then others are like, yeah, but we need to live on this world, and the only way we can do that is to adapt to our planet. As parents, we can't do it, but we can do that with our children. And that, I could see that being a huge part of conflict. And a matter of fact, you could make each world the players go to, or habitat, or asteroid belt, or abandoned ship or something, extremes of what we have on Earth. So you could have an extremely fanatical religious cult. You could have an extremely fanatical like socialist type of commune, extremely fanatical, hyper capitalist society in this world. You could take all kinds of ideas, ancient and modern day, survival things like Marxist ideas, and democratic ideas, and conservative ideas and things, and label them differently, and just take them and turn the volume up so high that it becomes completely alien. And then the group that comes in contact with them becomes like it's like not a reflection, but like a whoa, I can't believe these people did this kind of thing, because they left Earth and taken something with them to get there.
And with the more, and like, how would you go about kind of slowly showing that these are the humans that left Earth? I mean, obviously, with the ones that are genetically different, you could have them find like remains that have gradually changed, like a skeleton, a normal human skeleton, and then they discover a skeleton maybe like some like nodes coming out the spine to represent extra arms growing, or and things like that. And then the players would click after a while that maybe these current ones have come from it. But like, I have a feeling that if you go on for too long with like showcasing different colonies, it might get a bit boring to the players. Them always finding out that, oh, these are just the used to be the humans that left.
I think it would have to grow into some of these colonies after contact is made, that the colonies become larger factions in this intergalactic world, so that after first contact, the colonies become factions that are moved and motivated on their own. And if the players don't deal with it, it's the idea of a living world, right? Let's say there's they have to juggle 3 different factions. And as those factions are being incorporated back into the larger galactic society, when they deal with one problem, there's 2 other problems growing. And those problems don't necessarily need to be dangerous or lethal, but it could be like going back to like the overpopulation, or draining resources, or just infecting other people with really nasty behaviors. And they're trying to put down a military regime, but these other 2 factions are growing, making it difficult for them to deal with the military regime. So it could just be, it could be maybe the first round is first contact. And then after that, when they start, these other colonies might be bigger than we think they are. And they have their own nations in their own galaxy and on their own solar systems. So it may not just be one simple planet, but it could be maybe they encounter a place where they've grown to hundreds of millions of people, and they've spread across 2 planets and 15 habitats and like 17 asteroids or whatever, or moons and whatnot. And it could just be that the players go from explorers to like a police force, or even diplomats, or you could grow, you could transform their purpose from simply making contact to being involved in how the government is set up.
Yeah, and I just got the idea there that maybe one of these colonies or sea ships that you've come back across, even though it's been like thousands of years, and they don't remember what Earth is, they still feel an abandonment by Earth, because there's no follow up from Earth. So even though they don't know what Earth is, they feel a hatred towards Earth. So when they come across these people that are claiming to be from Earth, they feel this immediate like hatred towards them, and resentment to them that they're there. They can't remember why. They just know there's this hatred of these people.
Maybe the ultimate. Let's assume this runs like a television series. So the first season is first contact. The second season is as the different factions start to grow and intermingle with each other like a larger government. Maybe the third season is the ultimate desire for these other colonies is to go back to Earth, or at least our own home solar system, and reclaim it. So, and the way they each want to reclaim it, it might be different. So others might want to reclaim it simply for historical reasons. Like to them, it is like an archaeological dig. Like, hey, we came from this place. Let's go back there and see what it's like. Another group might be military. Like we want to go back to Earth and that system and take it over. That's where our history is. That's where our resources are. That's where our original genetic material comes from. We need to take it, control it, and dominate it. Maybe there's another group, like you said, are pissed off. Like we've been out here, we've been suffering, and you never sent help. You never tried to contact us. Whether that's true or not may not matter. They just feel this as a legacy, like you left us and we're going to come back and exact our revenge. There might be another faction that has genetically evolved and they want to go back to Earth. And when they go back to Earth, like humanity is second or third rung on the genetic scale. And they're like, yeah, we want to go back to the Earth solar system, but humanity can go away because we are actually far superior. Yeah, yeah. Nelson, sorry, you're a little late. We went through 2 hours. Is it almost 2 hours of this entire live stream was just about first contact. Using first contact in like role-playing games. Of course, we brought up a ton of popular media, video games, I think some graphic novels, a ton of television shows, a ton of movies, and just we're now just creating a setting where our own solar system is going to be wiped out with radiation, and we send out seed ships, and 1,000 years later, we are in our own solar system, and we go out to make first contact with the people we lost and how much they've changed and their different, how they've grown, and the fact that we actually survived in our own solar system, and what changes happened to our humanity when they left, whether they're genetically alien, whether we think they're human, whether they are human but they are pissed off at us, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think that would be a great setting, though. You could really, because you could have a couple of sessions just dealing with one faction and then moving from there onto others. He says, I miss taking part in all that. I'm going to go off in the corner and cry. It's all right, man. It's okay. We've got a nanotech tissue just for you. No, but I think you could really, really go far with these things. And I think one of the excellent, sometimes underutilized parts of science fiction is that the exploration and the social interaction part of it is really a major part of science fiction, science fiction, and the fantastical elements that it has, learning how to speak a language, learning how to deal with them, interacting with different factions amongst the aliens, finding out that maybe they're like you, using our idea you can steal, exploring the world. Some of them might be quite dangerous, so they could, earthquakes, mountains, electrical storms, various types of gravity, poisonous atmospheres, people living on the sides of cliffs or inside of tunnels or in dome cities, space battle, and getting blasted out into space without a spacesuit or something like that. Like, you still have those exploration elements on top of dealing with the fact that, yeah, you're just a small starship, maybe a crew of a couple thousand at most, and you're dealing with things that might change society.
Definitely, and I'm probably definitely going to use the idea of sending them out and then going to reclaim them, because our population is decimated and we've remembered that they're out there. So we'll go reclaim them, but instead they don't want to be a part of us anymore. They're happy to. Maybe they've been tucked under the wing of another alien race.
Yeah, I mean, and just like Infinite Roleplay says, that we usually we don't address the fact of how aliens are, and I think it can be a fine line if you're a game master if you make the aliens too alien, it's possible that we players may not be able to accept it. You know, it might be so difficult they just get in their starship and go away because they're just like, I don't understand this. They're talking in like color hues and pheromones or something, and we just don't get it. But on the other hand, not making them people in costumes, you know, face makeup, I think is a better thing. I mean, not saying that you shouldn't do that, but to make, if humanity was taken under the wing of another alien race and how much we changed by the other alien race might be a good way to deal with like the dichotomies, right? You know, our language changing with the other humans, their behaviors changing, whether they've gone far more primitive or far more advanced, that kind of thing.
So you'd come across the hybrids, like ancient Homo sapiens, basically come across Neanderthals. There was interbreeding, and even though they kind of ended up wiping the Neanderthals out, they still kind of interbred and took them into their colonies. And so I imagine the aliens would do that, like see what their human genetics would do to their species.
Absolutely. You know, a great place to steal that kind of stuff is like Discovery Channel, History Channel, Animal Planet. Yeah, it could be just stealing stealing a ton of ideas of how animals live or ancient cultures live, like you said, the Neanderthals, and them being wiped out by essentially another group that advanced before them or after them or what have you. So, you know, like Infinite Roleplay talks about ants, because he mentions ants in his comment. Ants, tigers, the whole marsupial line of like gorillas and apes. You could go so far as, like I mentioned before, with octopi and squids, or jellyfish or dolphins or something. And, you know, of course, if they're dolphin-like, but you change them into humans or humanoids, that could really throw the players off. Whereas like with ants, you make them humanoid, but they are a collective species. Again, that could really, you know, throw them off. Or an insect-like race that acts like human beings. You know, I don't know, wearing stretch jeans or something. That might be kind of weird.
Or like we spoke about before, and just coming up to us and shouting at us in their language, and shouting at each other in their separate world languages, and and demanding that we learn their language, and we.
Yeah, they think we're racist because we think they're just insects that all look alike, and they're just really offended by it.
And then they actually come to our planet and are really, really offended because we just step on insects.
Yeah, because you know, more often than not, people like to save species because they look cute. Very few people are like, we need to save the roach, you know, but everyone loves seeing like little, you know, tiger or lion cubs because they look cute, and they come here and they're just like, they could care less about the cute factor. It's the fact that we step on, like, we literally have an industry that is out to destroy insects in the homes. You know, we've got bug spray and wasp spray and everything, and they're just like completely offended by it. Like, what? You're committing genocide.
We're not going to deal with you until you get rid of these sprays.
Get rid of pesticides and ant traps.
Get rid of all that, and then we'll deal with you. But we get rid of all that, and then we get overrun by these insects. And then next time they come back, like maybe it's 100 years that they come back in, and like the whole planet's just been took over by insects, and they're like, okay, we'll work with you then.
Exactly.
Because they don't care that we're dead. They just want some they just want like first contact. So they're like, well, you're the leading race now, so we'll deal with you.
Oh wow. That's actually the concept of all strange things. Transformers. They thought that the cars and planes and trains and such on our world were the intelligent species because there were so many of them, and they were a mechanical species. So they come here and look like them, and then they realize, like, wait a minute, they're being manipulated by these meat sacks. Why are these meat sacks inside these machines? And then realize that it's actually humanity. But I mean, we have enough. We could have enough biodiversity that another alien race has more in common with something else other than humans here. So, I mean, we have a millions of different species of insects, and so many of them that it is possible that another alien race thinks of our insects as being primitive and doesn't look at the human beings as being worthwhile to deal with. Like, we're the annoying ones. We should be lifting up tarantulas and roaches and flies and wasps and things like that.
Maybe they come to this planet for first contact. We think they've come for us, but they've come to like elevate the ants or elevate the grasshoppers or something. Just elevate them to a status which they should have, which like the aliens believe that they should have, and they just like pretty much sweep us to the side and say, "No, we're here to deal with these."
From a practical point of view, they sure do work together far better than humanity does. I mean, most hives, even when the level of conflict with another hive versus the collectiveness it's probably like a 99% to 1%. I mean, you take a look at an ant colony. How many times do the ants have conflict with each other? It's probably none until it's motivated for like maybe another queen to make another colony. But other than that, I mean, do wasps fight each other in their own?
I don't think they do. I think they just get on with life.
Yeah, so they could be looking at human beings, and even though another alien race may think human beings are intelligent, we could be the race that is like, we are the divergent one that has supplanted the insect races that should be more intelligent and be uplifted. And they might say, well, let's go to this I mean, they come to Earth and say, well, we're going to uplift your insects. And all of a sudden, like Infinite says, ant plus orb weaver spider plus Einstein level intelligence, they could just uplift the insects and say, see ya, we'll come back in 1,000 years when we're finally able to talk with somebody that actually has some sense. And that would be pretty brutal unless there's a faction of human beings that's like, you know what, maybe they're kind of right. You know what I mean? Like, maybe
I imagine there would be that faction of people.
Yeah, there might be.
Let's side with the ants, and maybe they'll keep us around.
Yeah, maybe making deals with them or trying to adapt to the way they live, kind of. Where there's no individuality. You try to supplant your individuality to be more collective, if for no other reason to just live another day, or even trying to become protectors of this new insect-like species so that, like you said, we don't get eliminated. Like in many ways, we become their protectors so that when their intelligence advances enough, we hope that they choose to take care of us. Infinite says the first dictatorship that actually works. Yeah, I mean, it might be possible that they might have the best government in the world, which they don't even have a name for, right? It's just everyone does their job, and it's just maybe kind of strange. So Yeah, we've gone on so many different things about first contact. I think we've got a ton of
Mm.
ideas you can steal.
Mm.
Of course, we're hitting that
Just
2 hour mark. Won't be
I
able to
just
do
want to
these.
quickly
Absolutely.
bring up one that's kind of related to like the ants, like possibly maybe in the galactic community, multiple alien races come to Earth, and they each have differing opinions on which race is worth bringing into, because for that biodiverse, they come to Earth, and which species is worth bringing into the, or uplifting and bringing into the galactic world. Like you have one race coming in saying, well, the humans are quite obviously the most intelligent, and another one saying, well, no, it's just because they're so big, they're limiting the other animals' intelligence, so we need to eliminate, maybe push the humans to the side a bit to let the others grow. Maybe that's the aliens' approach when they come. Maybe they're saying, we'll push the humans to the side, give the other animals a chance to grow, and if they do, then we'll bring them in, and if they don't, then we'll just move on. Maybe they just we'll have to bring the humans in because they're the only ones that we have to have the. We're like the kids who have to be in the gang because the parents said so.
All right, let's bring this round in a big giant circle. Okay, let's say that what if Earth has so much biodiversity because the other alien races are all their planets were seeded by the same genetic material that helped create the species on Earth, but they were far more specialized. So, for example, everything that we see on like Animal Planet, all the insects, the creatures in the jungles and the swamps and the Arctic and all those kind of things, exist in some way, shape, or form as an alien race. And the larger alien um, galactic senate or something is made up of the intelligent versions of what we have here. Maybe everything from bacteria to single cell organisms to insects, or like, I don't know, the platypus or something, like just really bizarre things taken to an extreme, the octopi and squids or whatnot. And on Earth, we happen to be the superior ones, but these other alien races are looking to come here for their legacy in many ways. And for whatever reason, maybe they need new genetic material, maybe they want to meet their ancestors, or maybe they've just followed their genetic trail across the universe and want to make Earth like their museum or zoo or what have you. That instead all these people are together. They're like in one big soup, and the human beings are the last ones to be inducted into the soup of intelligent species.
Yeah.
See, Janny says the alien entity in Prey is pretty cool too. In that universe, the contact opened a new field in physics for us as the aliens can slip to parallel universes. Ooh, that's going on to even another deeper parallel universes, quantum physics, wormholes, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, first contact is first contact aliens inside of wormholes. Human first contact on parallel universes, where they humans made different choices. That's not even starships. That's more like the world where Native Americans decide to leave. The indigenous people left the states to go to other places and take over, as opposed to the other way around or something. You know what I mean? Like
The
Japan.
TV series Sliders.
Sliders is a perfect example of that. Yeah, man. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
One decision changed, effect can change the entirety of human history.
complicated setting to make up, but you could have fun with it. Because really you would have to just go back in time and in your mind, whether it's like a year, 20 years, 200 years, and go, if things were different, what would it be like today? Like if railroads never existed, or we never advanced past steam power, what would it be like today? Things like that. 5-year-old alien child explains a tesseract as easily as a human adult explains a banana. Yeah. All right, kid, you're president of the world now. Kid's like, I want to play. Where's my, then at the same time, it was like,
But,
hey.
but to that alien culture, that kid who can explain the tesseract is probably still like relatively stupid, still relatively learning and down on the intelligence. It's like, imagine the adult of that civilization.
Oh my god! Oh wow! They could be like the aliens in Arrival, where they just they're them explaining it to you is enough to change the reality around you. Like their language might be it's so interconnected with other past the 3 dimensions we know, that just explaining something to you just alters the reality in the world in which you are. It would probably just blow our minds. We would probably fall unconscious at a minimum.
Or imagine this 5-year-old aliens talking to a human, explaining what a tesseract is. To the adults, that's baby speak. That kid is just talking in like a baby talking in baby speak, and we're seeing it as our language. So like to the aliens, the humans are just talking like babies.
That would be hilarious. And like so humans would eventually learn how to utilize the tesseract, which would just advance us up to the level of just children.
Yeah. Like, and like it would be that parent to the child going goo 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 goo, like patting us on humans on the head, going goo, good boy, you've learned something.
Oh man.
Oh, you could go so many places with First Contact, and you could go from the absolutely humorous to the serious to the downright sexy. If you look at Star Trek.
we need to take a really simple OSR or rules light system, like USR 2.0 or the Black Hack or something like that, and just call it First Contact, and just write up like a ton of different like first contact scenarios that people could play in this world. You maybe make about like 5 to 8 different types of like character types, and then just go wild with it, from silly to deep and dark to it could be that the players are like are in a child, like this alien culture is so advanced that we have to understand a tesseract just to get out of the child's room, because they're just toys. And then we're just like, what? And
could you imagine how patronized like even the most intelligent player character would be to discover that to this alien race they're not even children. Not even children level intelligence.
Oh man. They're like, I've figured out how to bend time and space, and the alien's like, oh, that's a good boy. You're so cute with your time travel.
We learned that before we leave kindergarten.
Yep. Wow, that'd be crazy. Okay, so we really have to cut this off.
Yeah,
I will say that that if you've suffered through 2 hours of this, you're a big fan, and I love you guys. I don't know how to do an internet hug without knocking my camera off the little stand that it's on, but hugs and kisses, guys, and all the information will be down in the doobly-doo when I get a chance. Whatever. Thanks. My mind is going. I need some breakfast. RP, take us out.
Yeah,
well, that's my internet hug. Here, let me get my internet hug in here. Let's see. Oops, you can't misspell internet because that's where it is. Anyway, RP, take us out.
Yeah, well, I've been RP, and that's and we've been chatting for too long about First Contact. And to advertise my stuff, I have a channel where I talk about this, but also I'm 1/3 of Power Up Gamers Publishing, and we've got out the first volume of Lagat's Tomb of Amazing Creatures on print on demand, which DVD is now showing. Thank you, because mine's over there somewhere, wrapped up. And we also have a Kickstarter, which has about 2 weeks left of it, and we've reached the halfway point, 52% last time I checked. So if you want to go support that for the second volume, then please do. Also go towards other smaller projects we've got going on so far, such as my creation of the Jagic, which is our Jaguar mimic friend. And I've done another creature which is at the editing stage called
Your sound dropped out, dude. Yeah, your sound dropped out. No. Yeah, I still can't hear you. So just interrupt me when you get a chance if it pops back in. But anyway, of course, you guys know I'm a contributing writer to Critical Hit Publishing. My baby is the cinematic environs that I produce with them. Yeah, exactly. So no problem, RP. So yeah, sometimes the internet looks at us and it's like, okay, that's enough, guys. So the cinematic environs is my ability to take the third pillar, the exploration part, and just literally just use it to bring the physical world into the game to make it a dynamic part of it. I do a lot of my writing, of course, not now, but afterwards. So I've just been really sparked to come up with something. Eventually, every single natural element will be put into one big hardback compendium book before we move on to the more mystical realms. Although interspersed, we have done that. So, for example, we have aerial reaches as an example of using like floating cities and skies and stuff like that in your world. Not detailing the cities, but using airships and stuff and the stuff that they can go through, whether it's storms or whatnot, as an example. But anyway, there's different natural elements. Take a look at them on Drive Through RPG. All those details will be down in the doobly-doo as well. And my intention for this channel is to eventually make it like expand. Right now, I have a creators conclave every other Sunday with Darius Jana, who that detail will be in the doobly-doo below as well, as one of my co-hosts, but to have a revolving number of co-hosts on the channel and allow this channel to be a launching point for very many others who are like small press publishers, people who have creative ideas. And every single day we do a deep dive in a particular subject, whether it's like Monster Mondays, Tips and Tricks Tuesdays, World Building Wednesdays, Third Pillar Thursdays, and of course, Future Fridays. So thank you for joining me. Spread the word, thumb, comment, ring, share, poke, whatever you need to do would be greatly appreciated. And absolutely positively, if you guys have some great ideas out there, let me know. There's even a Discord channel, which I pop into not as often as I should, but there is one in the Discord. There's a hashtag questions for DBJ, and a great place to let me know what you some subjects you'd like me to think of. I've got a calendar started now. Vince really pushed me to do that because I really need to have people on the show. And maybe there's others out there who would like to talk with each other, not me, but two other people or more would like to talk with each other. That's a possibility too. So this show isn't just mine, it's for everybody. So guys, thank you very much. Everyone have a very good day. I'm out. I need some breakfast.